Again, I'd like to thank everybody who participated in today's symposium, and I'd now like to invite my colleague and dear friend, Dean Lyrissa Lidsky, to come up and continue. Thank you.
So I'm so happy to be here representing the University of Missouri School of Law, and I'm so happy to have gathered such an esteemed group of journalists, legal scholars, and lawyers in one place. And it's about to be my great honor to represent one of the true heroes for every media lawyer in the country. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you to two people who handled a tremendous amount of the logistics of this event. Barbara Cochran and my associate dean, my right arm, Paul Litton. So now it is my great honor and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. In truth, this keynote speaker, particularly at this event, needs no introductions. Just listen to the words about Floyd Abrams of the First Amendment Center. The First Amendment Center at the Newseum Institute advises, ask someone to name a First Amendment lawyer. If they answer 100% of the time, if they answer 100% of the time, the answer will be the same, Floyd Abrams. The name Floyd Abrams is synonymous with the First Amendment in a way that virtually no other name is. The New York Times has rightly described Mr. Abrams as the titan of free speech jurisprudence. Floyd Abrams earned his law degree from Yale, and after clerking for a federal district court, he joined Cahill, Gordon, and Reindel, where he still practices as senior counsel in its litigation group. His rise to prominence begins when he served as co-counsel to the New York Times in the famous Pentagon Papers case. So, as you probably know, the Nixon administration had asserted that national security interest required a prior restraint, an injunction, on the publication of government documents detailing how the U.S. found itself in the Vietnam War. Those documents had begun to be published, and more publications were forthcoming, first in the New York Times and later in the Washington Post. But Mr. Abrams and his co-counsel litigated the case all the way to the Supreme Court and ended up winning a historic victory there for both the New York Times, the Washington Post, and ultimately for press freedom. And it made it harder, even today, for the executive branch to suppress and censor publication based on claims of national security. Since that historic case, Mr. Abrams has argued more First Amendment and media law cases before the United States Supreme Court than any lawyer in our country's history. He successfully represented Landmark Communications in its case against the state of Virginia and successfully established the principle that the press may not be punished for printing the truth about how a public official performs his public duties. He has handled many important precedent-setting cases regarding libel, leaks, and the confidentiality of journalist sources. In addition to the New York Times, his clients include ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Time Magazine, Business Week, The Nation, and Standard & Poor's Financial Services, among many, many others. He represented the Brooklyn Museum of Art when Mayor Judy Giuliani decided to censor the art there as being sacrilegious. And as a testament to his principled stance on First Amendment rights, Mr. Abrams has more recently helped argue a side more aligned with conservative views in the famous case of Citizens United, a landmark campaign finance case holding that the government may not prohibit corporations and unions from spending their money to finance political ads during federal election campaigns. Mr. Abrams has won too many awards to catalog, but very notably, Yale Law School has formed the Floyd Abrams Institute for Freedom of Expression. Its mission is to promote free speech and scholarship and law reform on emerging questions concerning traditional and new media, and to provide law students the clinical opportunity to be involved in litigation, drafting legislation, and advising policymakers. Mr. Abrams is also an accomplished scholar as well as an accomplished lawyer. He has taught at Columbia's Graduate School of Journalism, as well as Yale and Columbia's Law School, and has written a number of books on First Amendment topics, including his most recent called The Soul of the First Amendment, which seeks to educate the public about the First Amendment and how it provides the most robust protections for free expression in the world. The book addresses the topics that we've been dealing with in our symposium today regarding the future of our First Amendment, and so we could not be more fortunate than to have him with us today as the person rightly deemed, quote, the most significant First Amendment lawyer of our age. Please join me in welcoming Floyd Abrams to the podium.